All right, thanks, guys. We went 15-4-2 in our last 21 college football plays. We're also 19-4-1 in our last 24 daily double plays. You can find that information on patreon.com/BrockPage. Let's go ahead and get into some NFL Week 6 lines and personal leans, beginning with the Giants taking on the Patriots. Now that's going to be an 8:20 Eastern kickoff this Thursday in New England. The Patriots are minus 16.5, total 44 and a hook. 60% of the consensus is leaning toward New England. 65% shaded toward the over. Right now, New York is plus 675 on the money line. The Giants just 2-3 straight up on the year, 2-3 against the spread. New England on the other side, 5-0 on the year, 3-2 against the number. This New England defense has given up just 34 points on the season. 34 points through 5 weeks. That's 6.8 points per contest a game they're allowing. New England 2-0 straight up in their last 2 in Foxborough. 18-0 straight up in their last 18 at home going back the past couple of years. They're also 5-0 against the spread in their last 5, taking on an NFC opponent. Now, New England has Watson, Chung, Ebner, and Burkhead all listed as questionable for Thursday night's action. Meanwhile, on the other side, this New York defense is giving up 25 points per contest. They've dropped 5 out of their last 6, taking on an AFC opponent. They're also 0-6 straight up in their last 6 October games. The Giants have Ogletree, Carter, and Davis listed as questionable. Saquon's still out with that ankle injury, although his progress is going a lot faster than expected. Now, total-wise, the Giants are 3-2 to the under thus far in the year, 5-2 to the under in their last 7, taking on the Patriots. Meanwhile, New England on the other side, 7-2 to the under in their last 9, taking on a member of the NFC East. They're also 4-1 to the under thus far in the year. I'm going to purchase the hook, buy it down, and take New England minus 16 and the under 44.5 in that game. Next matchup, Panthers, Bucks, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium over in England. Now, we had a good old-fashioned flip of the lines in this one. Tampa Bay is -1 right now with a total at 47.5, but they actually opened up as the 1-point dog, so we did see a 2-point move toward Tampa Bay. We also saw movement downward on the total as well. The Bucks open +1, now -1. Total open 48.5, down to 47 and a hook. 51% are leaning Buccaneers, 63% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Panthers are -102 on the money line. The Panthers are also 3-2 straight up on the year, 3-2 against the spread as well. The Bucks on the other side just 2-3 straight up and 2-3 against the spread. This Tampa Bay defense is giving up 30 points per contest, and they actually gave up 31 points or more in 4 out of their 5 games this year. Tampa has dropped 4 out of their last 5 at home. If you're into historical trends dating back to last year, they're also 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 at home, taking on Carolina. Now, I know that they're across the pond right now, but give or take, those are the stats as the official home team. So just figured I'd throw that out there. One more thing to add about Tampa Bay. They are 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 October contests. Now we have Perriman and Chicky listed as questionable for Tampa Bay. Now Carolina on the other side, 3-0 straight up in their last 3 ball games. They successfully covered the number in all those 3. They beat Arizona, Houston, and Jacksonville, and they averaged 29.3 points per contest in those victories. Now Carolina 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 in Tampa Bay, and of course, like I said, they're playing in England right now, but give or take, those are just the trends if they were traveling to Tampa Bay. Carolina 2-0 against the spread away from home this year as well. Now, when it comes to the total, the Bucks are 3-2 to the over thus far in the year, 5-0 to the over in their last 5 Week 6 ball games. Meanwhile, Carolina 8-4 to the over in their last 12 in October themselves. 3-2 to the over this year. I think the Panthers should get the job done in this spot here. I'm going to lean Carolina +1 and the over 47.5 in that game. Next matchup, Texans, Chiefs, 1 o'clock, Kansas City. The Chiefs are 7.5, total 55. 1 point fade of Kansas City and movement downward on the total. The Chiefs open 8.5, down to 7 and a hook. Total open 57, down to 55. 68% are leaning Houston. And at the moment, the Texans are 3-2 on the year, 3-2 against the spread. Kansas City 4-1 on the year, 3-2 ATS themselves. Now, Kansas City's failed to cover in their last 2 ball games. Their defense allowed 23 points per contest thus far in the year. They have Okafor, Watkins, Hill, and O'Daniel listed on the injury report as questionable. Now, Houston on the other side, they successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3. They scored 27 points or more in 3 of their games this year, and they are 5-0 straight up in their last 5 ball games played in October. Now, total-wise, Houston's 4-1 to the over in their last 5 on the road. Kansas City 9-4 to the over in their last 13, if you're into historical trends. So I am going to purchase the hook, buy it up, and take Houston plus 8. Sorry, I just got to write something down here. Okay. We're going to purchase the hook, buy it up, and take Houston plus 8 and the over 55 in that game. Next matchup, Washington taking on Miami. 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Miami. The Redskins are 3.5, total 41. Not a whole lot of movement on the spread in this one. Pretty good two-way action there. We did see a little bit of movement downward on the total. No surprises there. Once again, Washington minus 3.5, total open 41 and a hook, down to 41. 51% are leaning Redskins, 64% leaning toward the over. Right now, Miami's plus 165 on the money line. Both teams combined are 0-9 on the year. We got a Washington team who's 0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread. Meanwhile, Miami 0-4 on the year, 0-4 against the number. This is quite remarkable. Both teams combined just 1-8 against the spread as well. Now, Miami, they are 0-3 against the spread at home this year, 0-7 against the number in their last 7, dating back to last year. Miami's failed to cover in 6 out of their last 7 games, taking on an NFC opponent. This Miami offense is averaging just 6.5 points per contest on the year. They haven't scored over 10 points in any of their games. They have Wilson, Hearns, McCain, Grant, Davis, and Wiltz all listed as questionable. Meanwhile, on the other side, for Washington, they got a slew of guys on the injury report as well. They have Davis, Keenum, Sheriff, and Clemens all listed as questionable. And, of course, Rodgers, Cromartie, Reed, Foster, and Darius Geis all out for this week's game. Now, total-wise, this Washington defense is giving up over 30 points per contest on average per game, 30.2 to be exact. I think Washington should get the job done, and I actually think this will go over. So I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it down, and take Washington minus 3 and the over 41 in that game. Next matchup, Eagles, Vikings, 1 o'clock, Minnesota. The Vikings are minus 3, total 44. 67% are leaning Philadelphia, 84% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Eagles are plus 145 on the money line. Both teams coming into this game at 3-2 on the year. Now, the Eagles have failed to cover in 3 out of their 5 ball games. Meanwhile, Minnesota's 3-2 against the number themselves. This Minnesota offense, believe it or not, has scored 28 points or more in 3 out of their 5 games this year. They're also 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 at home. They have successful covers over the Giants, Oakland, and Atlanta this year. And this Minnesota defense, they've been playing very well this year. They're allowing just 14 points per contest, and they allowed over 16 points just once on the season. Now, injury-wise, we're looking at Alexander, Brothers, and Gideon listed as questionable for the Vikings. Meanwhile, Philadelphia on the other side, they successfully covered just 2 out of their 5 games on the season. Their defense is allowing 26.3 points per contest before yesterday's drubbing of the Jets. Now, Philadelphia failed to cover versus Detroit, Atlanta, and Washington this year. When it comes to the injury report, we have Sproles, Jackson, and Maddox listed as questionable, and Jernigan, Darby, Grugier, Hill are listed as out. Now, total-wise, Philly 5-1 to the under in their last 6 October games. Minnesota 4-1 to the under overall for the year, 6-1 to the under in their last 7, dating back to last year. I'm going to lean Minnesota -3 in the under 44 in that game. Next matchup, Bengals, Ravens, 1 o'clock Baltimore. The Ravens are -12, total 47.5. 61% are leaning Baltimore, 58% shaded toward the under. Right now the Bengals are plus 450 on the money line. The Bengals are also 0-5 on the year, 2-3 against the spread. Meanwhile, Baltimore 3-2 on the year, 2-3 ATS. This Baltimore offense is putting up 32.2 points per contest. They are relatively healthy as well. We're seeing just Smith and Brown listed as questionable on the injury report. Now, Baltimore has successful covers over Pittsburgh and Miami, so they're covering against those bad teams. And at 0-5, I would say Cincinnati is certainly one of those bad teams. Speaking of the Bengals, their defense is allowing 27.2 points per contest. They lost to Pittsburgh and Arizona in the last 2 weeks. They failed to cover in those games. The Cincinnati offense is also putting up just 16 points per contest. They scored over 20 points just once on the season. When it comes to this injury report, we have Wynn, Glenn, Erickson, and Williams listed as questionable for the Bengals. Now, total-wise, Cincinnati 7-3 to the over in their last 10 head-to-head matchups with Baltimore. Meanwhile, the Ravens, 4 out of their last 5 went over the total. I'm going to lean Baltimore -12 in the over 47.5 in that game. Next matchup, Saints, Jags, 1 o'clock Jacksonville. Now, this one is a pick'em contest right now. Total at 45. We did see a little bit of movement downward on the total, but we are seeing some pretty good two-way action when it comes to the sides. Once again, New Orleans, Jacksonville, pick'em contest. Total open 45.5 down to 45. 71% are leaning New Orleans, 51% leaning toward the over. Right now, New Orleans is 4-1 on the year, 3-2 against the spread. Meanwhile, the Jags on the other side, 2-3 straight up on the year, 3-2 against the number. Now, the Jags have lost to Carolina, Houston, and Kansas City by an average of a little bit over a touchdown per game. They actually lost to those 3 teams by an average of 7.3 points per loss. And their defense is allowing 29 points per contest on average in their last couple of games. Now, we have McCray, O'Shaughnessy, Ramsey, Harrison, and Oliver listed as questionable for the Jags. Jacksonville also failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6, taking on an NFC opponent. They're also 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 games, taking on a member of the NFC South. Now, New Orleans on the other side. Nice little 3-game winning streak. Really surprising considering all these 3 wins came without Drew Brees. They're also 3-0 against the spread in those same 3 ball games. They have successful covers over Tampa Bay, Dallas, and Seattle, and they were underdogs in 2 out of those 3 games. Now, the Saints, 5-1 against the spread in their last 6, taking on the Jags. They're also 7-3 against the number in their last 10, taking on the AFC South. One more thing to add about the Saints, they are 8-0 straight up in their last 8 ball games, taking on the AFC. Now, injury-wise, we have Trey Hendrickson listed as questionable for the Saints. We also have Drew Brees, Alex Anzalone, and Kirkwood listed as out. But other than that, New Orleans very healthy thus far in the season. Now, total-wise, New Orleans, their offense has scored 30 points or more in 3 games this year. They dropped 31 on Tampa Bay yesterday. Meanwhile, Jacksonville on the other side, 3-2 to the over on the year, 2-0 to the over in their last couple of games. I'm going to lean New Orleans in the pick'em contest and the over 45 in that game. Next matchup, Seattle, Cleveland, 1 o'clock Ohio. The Browns are -2.5, total 47. Pretty good two-way action on the spread. No movement there. We did see movement upward on the total, however. Cleveland, -2.5, total open 46.5 up to 47. 81% are leaning Seahawks, 87% shaded toward the over. The Seahawks are 4-1 on the year, 2-3 against the spread. Meanwhile, the Browns 2-2 on the year, 2-2 ATS. This Cleveland defense has allowed 20 points or more in 3 out of their 4 games this year. Their offense has also scored 13 points or less in 2 out of those 4 games. Now, Seattle on the other side, they won their last 2 straight. Their offense is averaging 27 points per contest. And Seattle scored 29 on the Rams and 27 on New Orleans. They are 2-0-1 against the spread in their last 3 on the road, depending on where you're shopping at. Now, injury-wise, we have Brown, Fluker, and Pocic listed as questionable for Seattle. And when it comes to the total, the Seahawks are 3-1 to the over in their last 4. This Cleveland defense is allowing 23 points per contest. I'm going to purchase the hook, buy it up, and take the Seahawks +3 and the over 47 in that game. Next matchup, 49ers taking on the Rams. And that's going to be a 4:05 Eastern kickoff in Los Angeles. The Rams are 4.5, total 48 and a hook. Saw movement downward on the spread and downward on the total. Half a point fade of Los Angeles in the early wagering. The Rams open -5, down to -4.5. Total open 49.5, down to 48 and a hook. 68% are leaning Rams. The Rams are 3-2 straight up on the year, 4-1 against the spread. San Fran on the other side, 3-0 straight up on the year, 2-1 against the number. This Rams defense is giving up. They've allowed 85 points in their last 2 games combined. Their defense is allowing 27 points per contest on the year on average per game. They're also 0-2 straight up in their last couple of ball games. The Rams have Cooks and Rapp listed as questionable. We also have Matthews and Hager listed as out. Now, the 49ers on the other side, they are scoring 32 points per contest on average. They're also 2-0 against the number on the road. Meanwhile, their defense is allowing just 18 points per game. Now, total-wise, San Francisco 2-1 to the under on the year. Rams 2-2 to the under in their last 4. I'm going to take San Francisco +5 after buying the hook and the under 48.5 in that game. Next matchup, Atlanta taking on the Cardinals, 4:05 Arizona. Atlanta's -2, total 51. We saw a 1-point fade of Atlanta in the early wagering. The Falcons open -3, down to -2, totals 51. 66% are leaning Atlanta, 81% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Cardinals are +115 on the money line. The Cards are also 1-3-1 on the year, 3-2 against the spread. Atlanta on the other side, just 1-4 on the year, 1-4 ATS. But this Arizona defense is allowing 28 points per contest on average per game. They've also failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3. We have Bird, Washington, Kirk, Gardick, Turner, and Allen all listed as questionable for Arizona. Now, Atlanta on the other side, 4-1 straight up in their last 5, taking on the NFC. They also scored 24 points or more in 3 games thus far in the year. They do have Wilson, Barner, Bosher, Brown, and KZ listed as questionable on the injury report. Now, total-wise, Atlanta 2-1 to the over on the road. Arizona 3-2 to the over, 2-1 to the over at home. I'm going to lean Atlanta -2 and the over 51 in that game. Next matchup, Cowboys, Jets, 425 Meadowlands. The Cowboys are -8.5, total 43 and a hook. Not a whole lot of movement on the sides, although we did see movement downward on the total. Once again, Dallas, -8.5, total opened 44.5, down to 43 and a hook. 79% are leaning Cowboys, 86% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Jets are +330 on the money line. The Jets are also 0-4 on the year, 1-3 against the spread. Dallas on the other side, 3-2 straight up on the year, 3-2 against the number. Now, this Jet offense is averaging just 9 points per contest, really struggling to get on the board. They're also 0-2 against the number at home. Their defense allowed 84 points in their last 3 games. The Jets have Osemele, Copeland, Mosley, Anderson, Jenkins, Darnold, and Herndon all listed as questionable on the injury report. Now, the Cowboys on the other side, their defense gave up just 14 points per contest on average before that loss to Green Bay yesterday. They do have successful covers over Miami, Washington, and the Giants, proving that they can get the job done against very bad teams. Now, the Cowboys offense is averaging 26 points per contest. They only have Smith and Woods listed as questionable, so relatively healthy for these Cowboys. Now, total-wise, the Jets, 3-1 to the under on the year, 2-0 to the under at the Meadowlands. I'm going to purchase the half a point, slide it down, and take Dallas -8 and the under 43.5 in that game. Next matchup, Titans, Broncos, 425 Denver. The Broncos are 2.5, total 39 and a hook. Pretty good two-way action on the spread. No movement there. We did see movement upward on the total, however. Denver, once again, minus 2.5, total open 38.5, up to 39 and a hook. 58% are leaning Broncos, 56% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Titans are plus 125 on the money line. Tennessee just 2-3 on the year, 2-3 against the spread. Meanwhile, the Broncos on the other side, 1-4 on the year, 2-3 against the spread themselves. Denver's lost their last two straight at home. Their offense is scoring just 18 points per contest, and they failed to cover the spread against Jacksonville, Green Bay, and Oakland. The Broncos failed to cover in 7 out of their last 9 ball games dating back to last year. Their defense has given up 24 points or more in 3 out of their 5 games this year. Now we have James Callahan and Josie Jewell listed as questionable for Denver. Meanwhile, this Tennessee defense on the other side, they've actually been very good this year. They're allowing just 15 points per contest, and they haven't given up over 20 points yet this year. Tennessee has Wake, Pamphile, and Finch listed as questionable. And when it comes to the total, Tennessee's 4-1 to the under on the year, 2-1 to the under away from home. Meanwhile, Denver 3-2 to the under on the season themselves. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take Tennessee plus 3 in the under 39.5 in that game. All right, next matchup, Sunday night primetime. It's going to be Pittsburgh taking on the Chargers, 8:20 Los Angeles. The Chargers are minus 5.5, total 43 and a hook. Not a whole lot of movement on the total, although we did see pretty heavy money on the Chargers. They opened 4.5 up to 5.5, totals 43 and a hook. 73% of the consensus is leaning toward the Chargers. Now, Los Angeles is just 2-3 on the year. They've also failed to cover in 4 out of those 5 games. Meanwhile, the Steelers on the other side, although they're just 1-4 straight up on the season, they are 3-2 against the spread in those 5 games. Now, the Chargers are just 1-5 in their last 6 at home, taking on Pittsburgh, if you're into historical trends. Meanwhile, this Pittsburgh offense, they're actually averaging 24 points per game. Now, injury-wise, we have Barron, Chickalo, Nix, Washington, and Rudolph listed as questionable for Pittsburgh. Rudolph in concussion protocol, obviously, after that hellacious hit yesterday. Now, the Chargers on the other side, they have a couple guys on the injury report as well. They have Pouncey, Jackson, Badgley, Adderley, all listed as questionable. I think this is actually a pretty good spot for Pittsburgh backers. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take the Steelers plus 6 in the under 43.5 in that game. And that's going to lead me into my next and final game for the show. It is going to be Monday Night Football. Detroit taking on Green Bay, 8:15 kickoff at Lambeau. The Packers are minus 6, total 46.5, so a little bit of movement toward Green Bay. They open 5.5 up to 6, totals 46.5. 57% are leaning Green Bay, 72% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Lions are plus 215 on the money line. Detroit's 2-1-1 on the year, 3-1 against the spread in those 4 games. Meanwhile, the Packers on the other side, 4-1 straight up on the year, 4-1 against the spread. This Green Bay offense is averaging 29.3 points per contest in their last 3 games. They have successful covers this year over Chicago, Minnesota, Denver, and Dallas. We're looking at a Green Bay team who's 6-3 straight up in their last 9 at Lambeau. Now we have Adams, Lindsley, Williams, Tanyan, Valdez-Scantling, Brown, and Savage all listed as questionable for Green Bay, so they are a little bit banged up. Now, Detroit on the other side, their defense gave up 24 points or more in 3 out of their 4 games this year. Their defense is allowing 24 points per contest on average. And injury-wise, we have Amendola, Daniels, Slay, Diggs, Hand, and Hawkinson listed as questionable for the Lions. Now, Detroit's failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6 games played in the month of October. Now, total-wise, Detroit 3-1 to the over on the year, 2-0 to the over away from home. Meanwhile, the Packers on the other side, 2-1 to the over at home, 3-0 to the over in their last 3 ball games at any location. I'm going to lean toward the home favorite in this one. Give me the Packers minus 6 in the over 46.5 in that game. And we're going to go ahead and slide into our quick pick recap brought to you by Patreon.com/Brock Page. We have the Packers minus 6 over 46.5. Pittsburgh +6, under 43 and a hook. Tennessee +3, under 39 and a half. Dallas -8, under 43 and a half. San Fran +5, under 48 and a half. Atlanta -2, over 51. Washington -3, over 41. Seattle +3, over 47. Minnesota -3, under 44. New Orleans winning their game outright in the pickup contest and the over 45. Houston +8, over 55. Baltimore -12, over 47 and a half. Carolina +1, over 47 and a hook. And last but not least, we have New England -16 and the under 44 and a half in that game. All right, guys, that is going to do it for me for NFL Week 6. Once again, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are 15-4-2 in our last 21 college football plays. We're also 19-4-1 in our last 24 daily double picks. There's also plenty of free content there as well, including my current record amongst all different memberships, packages, and tiers. And just to give you a heads up, our memberships begin at just $1.99 per month. And like I said, plenty of free content there as well, including my current record. Now, most importantly, I got to thank you guys for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/BrockPage.